Listen to the Wealth Talks podcast and increase your financial wisdom. You will find episodes about investments, the infinite banking concept, how to fight inflation, the financial side of retirement, and financial questions Jesse asked his girlfriend. Listen to the Wealth Talks podcast on any podcast platform or watch it on YouTube. There are new episodes of the Wealth Talks podcast weekly. Search for Wealth Talks podcast online and subscribe for free.
Looking for a knife that's more than just metal? The Rainy Forge handcrafts blades in a real coal forge, the way they were meant to be made. Every knife is meticulously crafted, hair-popping sharp, and built to last a lifetime. From hunting to cooking, we've got a blade for you. Affordable heirloom quality. Visit therainyforgeblacksmith.com and click Buy a Knife to get started. The Rainy Forge, built with tradition, ready for your adventure.
Attention, you're listening to the Todd Huff Radio Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk radio. Be advised that the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. Here's your conservative, but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
All right, my friends, if you listened last hour, you would have heard me give an analogy. An analogy talking about election security. We've been going through this executive order issued by Trump pertaining to election security and integrity and all that. And I was given an example of, if you owned a shop, if you owned... I used the word bodega. I don't know why. I think I used the word bodega because bodegas are typically owned by, it's not a big supermarket chain or something like that. It's a small kind of mom and pop sort of thing in say, New York City. I got to be honest, I don't know if I've ever been to a bodega. Oz told me during the break, she goes, I don't think I've ever heard you use the word bodega. And I certainly didn't hear you use the word bodega 11 times in your entire life as you did in the last hour. So anyway, but the analogy still stands. But I'm not a connoisseur, I guess, of bodegas here. Anyway, lots to get to this hour. I want to keep talking about this executive order that Trump issued pertaining to election integrity. There's other things I would like to get to, time permitting as well. I don't know that we'll be able to. We are limited in time. I will do my utter best to get there, my friends. But that's where we are today. That's what we're going to continue. We're going to continue where we left off last hour. I've got a few more bullet points to kind of hit the high points of what this executive order is about. We're going to talk a little bit about states' rights and, of course, the rights of the federal government to at least set some rules. And then we're going to move on past this is the objective here in this hour of the program. If you want to hear, I think there's 9 bullet points, and I got through 5.5 of them in the first hour. If you want to hear those, you can listen to the first hour of the program. Go to toddhuffshow.com. Go to wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcast, wherever else. And you can download it for free, and you can listen there. Anyway, that's what we're going to do. Friends, before we get started down that path, if you're in sales, let me ask you this. How would your life change if you were able to double your sales? Think about that for a second. Doubling your sales could be a huge deal for you, your family, your future, your career. It could open up a tremendous amount of doors for you. That means more deals, bigger commissions, less stress. That's what Matt Easton and Easton University can help you achieve. Matt's system is designed to transform your sales career, and he'll even personally jump on a call with you when you sign up to be a student. This is an exclusive offer to you, listeners of the Todd Huff Show. And he'll help you get started on that call. He'll listen to your personal challenges. He'll kind of give you some pointers and some starting points and get rocking and rolling with his training. This is not just a training program. However, it is a proven path to success. I mean, the amount of sales that they help people generate is astonishing. The numbers on the website are mind-bogglingly large. But you've got to take the first step, my friends. Go to toddhuffshow.com/Easton, EASTON, toddhuffshow.com/Easton now to become a student and to claim your personal call with Matt Easton to get ramped up and improving your sales. toddhuffshow.com/Easton. Don't let another opportunity slip through your hands. Your future in sales starts today, my friends. Take advantage of that. I have gotten to know Matt a little bit. I've gotten to know his content, his training system very well, and it is top notch. I'm telling you, when I started in sales years ago, 20-some years ago, I invested in personal training myself with Zig Ziglar. This stuff that Matt Easton offers is better than that. And it is something that I would highly encourage you to take a look at if you're in sales or if you're managing a sales team, what have you. All right, there you go. So that being said, let's pick up where we left off, talking about kind of a summary of this executive order. I went through the first 5 1/2 of my 9 bullet points here as I've summarized this with the assistance of some AI tools that we use, some pretty advanced AI tools, which is incredible, to help with some research. But I want to pick up and repeat point 6 because I've got to do both halves of point 6. So the executive order focuses on enforcing federal election day laws. The Department of Justice must ensure compliance with federal laws. This should go without saying, my friends, requiring ballots to be cast and received by election day. The EAC, which that is what does that stand for? The Election Assistance Commission, which again, 99% of people had not ever heard of until this. But the EAC is instructed to condition funding on states adopting uniform standards for ballot receipt deadlines. So this is a big thing. If you remember back in 2020, now again, I'm only doing this for educational purposes and to remind you of what we went through to paint the picture as to why. I think if you're talking with someone about this executive order, I think personally you should avoid referencing any election because we can't change whether or not 2020, the things that were claimed, or some people even claim like Rosie O'Donnell, I believe it was Rosie O'Donnell, think that the 2024 election was stolen by Elon Musk and Starlink. So whatever, that's crazy talk, but okay. So, but if you remember back in 2020, we had COVID and we had all of these state laws pertaining to elections. And then you would have governors or secretaries of state or some other governing official within a state who would arbitrarily extend deadlines. The law might say ballots must be received and counted by this date, and they would arbitrarily change that. This happened in 2020 in a lot of places. And not focusing on what that did to the counts, this is not the way that it works. It's not the way that it works. You can't just willy-nilly choose to not enforce a law that's clearly written on the books. And so it makes perfect sense that the federal government, listen, you got to think back when the founders framed the Constitution. And, Election Day was a period of time where people got together and basically cast the ballot based upon their idea, belief, position, right? That they made their choice known that day. With the information I have here today on November 5th, whatever year, this is my choice for president, whatever. Congressman, they weren't voting, by the way, on senators because senators used to be elected by state legislatures. That, of course, was done away with. I think that was a huge mistake, quite candidly. Anyway, so you go through this and you think, of course, we should, if a ballot is going to be counted for an election. It must be received and counted by a certain time. You can't just say it's election day and I'm going to drop my ballot in the mail today and I expect that to be counted. Why is this acceptable? Listen, folks, I can look on the calendar. You can look on the calendar and you can find out when election day is going to be. You can find out when election day is going to be in 20 years, right? You can do that. You can find it. This is not surprising to anybody. If you want to participate in that election, you need to follow the steps that make you registered to be able to cast your ballot. These aren't going to sneak up on anybody. These are there for anybody who wants to participate. Even if you suspect you might want to participate, be a good idea to register to vote. You can mark your calendar. These are not, it's not quite as easy as finding Christmas Day because Election Day will change. It's not a set day every year. It's a set, the first Tuesday in November. It's more like, it's not as complicated as Easter. It's like Memorial Day. You can find Memorial Day at the last Monday, the last Monday of May. Or maybe it's the Monday after the fourth Sunday. It's something like that. Anyway, so it's easy to find. Your ballots should be received and counted by the date of the election. This concept that we don't know on election night who people voted for is preposterous. We have to quit accepting that. This is simple arithmetic. This is not some convoluted process. We have way overcomplicated this thing. These are taking ballots and just tabulating who people voted for. In many cases, with the help of tools like computer tabulation and so forth. But even if you had to count paper ballots, friends, listen, if you say, man, there's just too many ballots to count. Well, what kind of thinking is that? You basically say we're going to have as many volunteers or paid workers or whatever necessary to count these ballots within this amount of time, right? I mean, auto assembly lines don't say, wow, that's a lot of cars. We can't make that many parts. If they do, they'll say, okay, we need to increase capacity in order to meet the demand, in order to fulfill the requirements. Why can't the same be done for this? This is not hard. You just need more people, more manpower. This is actually one of the legitimate things government should be doing. They should do it well. Don't be asking me to do more things when you don't do the basic things well. This is not hard. This is counting. It's quite literally counting. Children know how to count. Children can be, I'm not saying children should be allowed to do this, but children could absolutely be trained on how to count ballots. I guarantee you, I don't know the age cutoff, but if you've got a kindergartner and you take a piece of paper and you put a box and you put, Mickey Mouse and you put a box, and then you put Cinderella and you put a box, whatever, maybe some Disney characters, and you say, we're going to hand these out to members of our family and we're going to all vote for who our favorite Disney character is. And you say, your job is to count the ballots. We're going to give this to Grandma and Grandpa, Aunt Susie, Uncle Billy, Cousin Tommy, all this stuff. There's going to be 30 ballots when we get them all sent out, and you're going to tabulate them. And what you do is when you get a piece of paper that's got an X in Mickey Mouse's box, you count that as one vote for Mickey Mouse. This actually, as I'm saying this actually sounds very similar to the candidates the Democrats have given us in recent years. But you say, okay, if you have a box next to Cinderella that's checked, you mark that as one for Cinderella, and then you add them up. And I'm telling you, your 5-year-old's going to get this. This is not hard. This is not hard. And that's what this executive order is trying to do. Hey, look, we have a deadline. That's not a hard concept to understand. we're going to count ballots in a reasonable, amount of time. We're going to get these. We're going to count them. We're going to be transparent. There's going to be a paper trail, and we're going to restore faith in this. This is ridiculous that we've gotten to this point. Point number 7 here, preventing foreign interference. The DOJ is directed to prioritize enforcement of laws prohibiting foreign nationals from contributing to U.S. elections or influencing ballot initiatives. Federal funds cannot be used for lobbying activities. Again, enforcing the laws that already exist. That's what listen, I've gone through this before. You don't legislate by executive order. I guess you technically can govern by executive order so long as your executive order is in compliance with the law. So a lot of people who don't want to understand full context or who want to oversimplify will say, I don't like a lot of executive orders. Depending on what they are, I may or may not agree with that. If an executive order is creating a new law, that is not legitimately part of the executive branch's authority. If, however, the executive branch sets a priority and says we are going to direct the Department of Justice to actually enforce these laws, this is our interpretation, this is a priority for us, this is the reason and the rationale we're doing these things, that's totally and completely legitimate. And I would say, and there was a time in my life when I would only be bothered by the sheer number of executive orders. And that would be the measurement by which I would put too much stock. It matters what the context is. And candidly, if laws have been ignored, if the executive branch has not been enforcing laws, I would say that it is almost the obligation of the executive branch, a new executive branch leader, to come in and to make it a priority, declare it, make it known through something like an executive order that says we are going to enforce these laws that are on the books. If Congress doesn't like them, Congress can take them off the books. We've watched it is a remarkable thing for me to watch this. We've watched as one, maybe the uniparty. I was going to say one political party, but Republicans are guilty of this too. It's people who wanted to turn a blind eye to immigration. I watched as administration after administration ignored federal immigration laws. They ignored securing the border. They ignored enforcing the laws that would secure the border. And they were given excuses time and time again. I've gone through this back when Jan Brewer was governor of Arizona and she was wagging her finger in Obama's face. Arizona said the federal government's not enforcing the border law, immigration law, so we're going to enforce it ourselves. It goes to court. The court says the states can't enforce that law. That's the job of the federal government, but then the federal government won't do it. And it's like everybody voted for this. These are the laws on the books, and yet the amount of mental jujitsu and just double speak and everything else that's required to prevent from yourself and your branch from actually enforcing the law is off the charts crazy. It's absolutely ludicrous. And so now we've been subjected to that for decades, where we've had this elaborate dance in fantasy world about how the executive branch wasn't going to do the things it didn't want to do, even though it was the law of the land. And, sometimes doing things they had no business doing because that was a priority at the moment. You take your pick from, you have to bring the courts into this as well, just declaring, say, same-sex marriage, the law of the land, and all this sort of stuff. But they have these priorities, political priorities, and they'll just choose to ignore or to ignore laws that exist on the books, enforce laws that really don't exist. And that's been totally fine. Now you've got a guy that's wanting to rectify all that and to clean this stuff up and citing the laws that are going to be enforced, and you get a lot of people who get their feelings hurt here. Number 8, rescinding prior executive orders. This order revokes Executive Order 14019, promoting access to voting, and requires agencies to cease actions related to its implementation. By the way, as a rule of thumb, if this is logically speaking, the courts may intervene sometimes with these activist judges, but if a previous administration issues an executive order directing the executive branch to do something, it stands to reason that the next administration can address it through executive order and undo that. If Congress thinks one of those interpretations is correct, they have a prerogative to make a law to clarify it, but they haven't typically done that. And so this is rescinding an executive order, totally legitimate. And then, of course, there's the general provisions part of this, which talks about how it's compliant with existing laws and all that sort of stuff. So that's what the executive order is about. I got a soundbite that I want to play. I'm going to have to wait. It's a very close call here. I'm going to have to possibly wait. We'll see here in a second. Before I get to that, this will determine if I do this or not now. Let's talk quickly about sleep, my friends. If you're tossing and turning at night, I did a little bit of that last night. I'd gotten back from that Pacer game and was just amped up, I think. But if you're tossing and turning at night routinely, regularly, it may be time to make a change. MyPillow could be part of that solution. They've got patented pillows that can be a game changer for your sleep, but they've also got luxurious towels and cozy slippers and a whole lot more. It's not just comfort, it's quality, my friends, that you can trust. MyPillow products are made right here in the good old US of A, so when you buy from MyPillow, you're not just investing in a better night's sleep, you're supporting American jobs and American values. That's something we can all get behind. Go to MyPillow.com, use promo code Todd for exclusive discounts and specials by using that discount code. Don't wait. Your best sleep ever is just a click away. MyPillow.com, promo code Todd. Sleep like a patriot, my friend. All right. I don't have time to get to this soundbite. I've got a clip from CBS News here that I'm just going to have to wait to get to because it's a couple of minutes. It's commentary. It's commentary that's under the guise of news. How they want you to think about this executive order on voting, voter integrity, and all that sort of stuff. So I'll get to this into the next segment. But this will also dovetail nicely with what I want to talk about next, which is just some of the recent ways that the media has been exposed, even more so. Now, we've known this for a long time, but even more so for some of the shenanigans and ridiculousness that's been happening within the media, the bias within the media. We had testimony before Congress yesterday from some people in public broadcast that, again, none of this is earth-shattering in the sense that those of us that have paid attention have known this. But those who haven't been paying attention or those who have refused to accept this for what it really is, it's actually pretty eye-opening. It could be, if you've had your head in the sand or you don't want to admit this about the media, but it's pretty damning stuff that's out there regarding to what the media has been telling us, what they've been peddling, and so forth. We'll get to these things on the other side of that timeout, my friends. I've got to take it right now. You're listening here to the home of conservative, not bitter talk. I am your host, Todd Huff, back here in just a minute.
Listen to the Wealth Talks podcast and increase your financial wisdom. You will find episodes about investments, the infinite banking concept, how to fight inflation, the financial side of retirement, and financial questions Jesse asked his girlfriend. Listen to the Wealth Talks podcast on any podcast platform or watch it on YouTube. There are new episodes of the Wealth Talks podcast weekly. Search for Wealth Talks podcast online and subscribe for free.
Looking for a knife that's more than just metal? The Rainy Forge handcrafts blades in a real coal forge, the way they were meant to be made. Every knife is meticulously crafted, hair-popping sharp, and built to last a lifetime. From hunting to cooking, we've got a blade for you. Affordable heirloom quality. Visit therainyforgeblacksmith.com and click Buy a Knife to get started. The Rainy Forge, built with tradition, ready for your adventure.
At FurnitureMadeInUSA.com, we provide beautiful chairs, rockers, stools, and tables handcrafted by skilled American artisans in North Carolina since 1924. With every purchase, you're supporting American businesses, American workers, and their families. Don't just buy furniture, invest in a piece of American history. Shop now at FurnitureMadeInUSA.com.
Welcome back, my friends. So I told you we were going to shift gears here a little bit, still talking about this executive order, but want to shift gears and move into the media. This is CBS News' Scott MacFarlane. I must confess, I don't know much about Scott MacFarlane, though I suspect he's like everybody else I would encounter at CBS and people who are on the in the media who are carrying the banner for the Democrat Party. So I'm going to play his little. Again, it's supposed to be news, but it's commentary is what it is. So he's quoting what he calls some of their best sources, whatever that's supposed to mean. Some of their best sources are telling people to pay attention to how terrible this executive order apparently is. So I want to play this because that's what we've been talking about. Really quickly, though, before I do that, friends, we do this show every day. It's a 2-hour program. It airs on the radio show, or on the radio, I should say. It airs as a podcast. We also have Todd Talks, 60-second feature. Those are on the website. Those are put out on social media. Those air on radio stations as well. So we produce a lot of content here, but we're also building a membership program where you can have exclusive content, kind of behind-the-scenes stuff, more in-depth sort of things is what we're looking to do there. You can become a lifetime member of that membership program. It's called the Inner Circle. Lifetime member, that means one-time investment, you're in for life. $99 is all that it is, and that program will be launching here later in the spring, and we'll be building it. I'm looking for the people who want to be part of this at the ground level, help to shape it, help to create an environment where we can be doing more things kind of at a grassroots or practical level. So if you're interested in that, text the word JOIN, JOIN, to 317-210-2830. Again, text the word JOIN to 317-210-2830, or you can go to toddhuffshow.com/join as well. Again, toddhuffshow.com/join if you're interested in becoming a lifetime member of the Inner Circle for only $99. All right, so that being said, let's play this soundbite. This is, again, Scott MacFarlane, CBS News, trying to tell us how dangerous this executive order is from Trump. Here you go.
Some of our best sources and the ones with whom we speak most regularly wanted to emphasize, don't lose track of the executive order that came out Tuesday from the White House about election integrity. They wanted to underscore it's important. Don't let it go overlooked.
Don't let it.
The executive order, among other things,
we have
the
it, Scott,
president would require proof of citizenship to vote in federal elections, some type of documentation, which is not a requirement now. It also will have state and local governments try to block counting ballots that arrive after Election Day.
Wow.
Even if those ballots were submitted on time.
Stop everything. This is so deceptive. If it's on time, it would have been received by Election Day. I mean, we have Election Day, Scott. We don't have it's turned into election month. This is preposterous. You have I just can't. This is not to be taken seriously. I mean, we have a system. We're part of a federal government where when there's a national election, the government absolutely can say, look, this is Election Day. Votes have to be received and tabulated by this day. What is so hard? I don't care if the state says you can. Scott, should they be able to send it in for the 2024 election in March of 2025? I mean, give me a break, man. This sort of stuff is disingenuous. He's trying to make it sound so, serious and just try to be this, just regular guy, just have concerns about this, man. This voter integrity and executive order. We got to pay attention to this. Oh, it's so scary. It's so sad. If they were submitted on time, Scott, they would have been received and counted by Election Day. Give me a break. He continues.
Also, could require a recertification or a decertification of some states or some communities' voting systems. It gets really into the grain of how elections are conducted. And
Really
it
into the
could
grain.
lead to some communities, some states, be it blue states or otherwise, losing federal funding.
Notice that he even picked up the states that we got to be concerned with, be it blue states or otherwise. What do you mean otherwise? We know exactly the people who have no interest in following this sort of thing. So he thinks, as he's punching his fist or smacking his hands there, that it's a shame that these folks are going to lose funding for basically not complying with any sort of federal government rules on how elections can be run. The states can still run them as they see fit, but to act like the federal government doesn't have an interest in setting some basic rules like, oh, you have to receive and count your ballots by this day. Come on, man. You can't be serious. He continues here. He continues.
They're not complying with the president's mandate.
Mm-hmm.
It seems certain, if not imminent, that there will be legal challenges to this executive order. They will try to stop them in court. And the Pennsylvania Secretary of State's office told CBS News today this is outside the president's power, that state and local governments run this component of elections. So there'll be legal.
They do run local. The states have jurisdiction over their elections, but again, it doesn't mean that the federal government doesn't have the ability to set some basic time and general manner on how the election overall is run. I mean, you cannot have a system where, again, I like analogies where I made reference to the NCAA tournament in the previous hour, but you can't have some states playing by rules of basketball and others playing by the rules of football. Like, there has to be some general guidelines that say this is, how much time's on the clock, right? How are we playing halves or quarters? Are we playing with the oblong ball or a round ball? Scott, the federal government absolutely has that. Now, there's a line in there that authority. There's a line in there where the states absolutely have the right to manage their own elections. I am not a proponent of the federal government running the elections. I've spoken out against that a lot. But to pretend like the nuance here is lost on people. I think deliberately so from people like, I don't want to mention Scott, but people in the media deliberately deceive and confuse and conflate things to make people not understand what's going on. The only option isn't to federalize the election as option one, which is ironically what the left wants to do when Biden's in power. That can't be option one. And then option two is the states do whatever they feel like. I mean, there's a middle ground there where the states can run their election, but there has to be some sort of framework or structure that the federal government can certainly say, hey, here's the basics. You guys run it as you see fit beyond this, but we certainly have, we have an interest in this sort of thing. He continues.
Challenges. But even if the legal challenges succeed, even if they're a firewall, the distrust is already being sown.
Oh my gosh, I can't take
in
this.
the next federal elections. And the midterm elections are closer than you think. They're less
Why is it clapping?
than 20 months away. That being said, if the distrust is sown, some damage is done. There can be an effort to use these legal challenges or these unenforced executive orders to sow the type of distrust that can destabilize U.S. communities. And sources wanted to emphasize that same type of disintegration of confidence happened in 2020, all with the foundation that there is widespread fraudulent voting by undocumented immigrants, which did not succeed, arguments that did not succeed in the court.
Oh my gosh, this guy is
I want to make sure this story didn't go overlooked.
Well, thanks for sharing that brilliant insight.
Our best sources.
You told us nothing there. You inserted some leftist talking points. Again, the merits of the 2020 claims were not argued in court. This is not a genuine commentary that Scott quickly became one of my least favorite journalists with this clip in 2 minutes and 6 seconds of nonsense. But the idea here that the 2020 charges or allegations of abuse were heard by a judge, and the judge said, nope, okay, I heard your evidence, there's nothing there. These cases were struck down because there was lack of standing and some legal reasoning as to why the cases were never even heard back in the day, back in 2020. This is just all, maybe those all would have lost, but maybe they wouldn't have won any of those cases. Who knows what these judges would do? And by the way, even if they did do that, I mean, we've seen, judges can abuse their authority as well. Judges can act in their own political best interests as well. And it's not causing a destabilizing effect on our country, Scott, if I point that out. I'd say that that's actually the mature thing to do. And then on a case-by-case basis, considering the full context, of course, we got to get it from someone other than Scott here. But once we understand the context of the full situation, then we can say it does or doesn't apply. This judge was doing his job. Maybe I don't agree with his decision, but I can at least see where he legally made that decision. We've gotten to the point to where you can't even question this. If you question it, you're causing the destabilization of certain communities. You're causing people to not have confidence in our system. I'll tell you what causes people not to have confidence in our system, Scott, is when they ignore the real questions people have. I talked about this in a previous segment. I'm just long in this segment. What a joke. This is a joke. I've never seen this guy, and I'm glad I haven't. I have to take a break. Quick time out, my friends. Back in just a minute.
Listen to the Wealth Talks podcast and increase your financial wisdom. You will find episodes about investments, the infinite banking concept, how to fight inflation, the financial side of retirement, and financial questions Jesse asked his girlfriend. Listen to the Wealth Talks podcast on any podcast platform or watch it on YouTube. There are new episodes of the Wealth Talks podcast weekly. Search for Wealth Talks podcast online and subscribe for free.
Looking for a knife that's more than just metal? The Rainy Forge handcrafts blades in a real coal forge, the way they were meant to be made. Every knife is meticulously crafted, hair-popping sharp, and built to last a lifetime. From hunting to cooking, we've got a blade for you. Affordable heirloom quality. Visit therainyforgeblacksmith.com and click Buy a Knife to get started. The Rainy Forge, built with tradition, ready for your adventure.
Shooters, hunters, and outdoor enthusiasts, Emax Tactical has you covered. We offer specialty, exotic, and vintage ammunition you won't find anywhere else. Plus, field medical kits and civilian legal training. Emax Tactical is passionate about helping customers find exactly what they need. 90% of orders go out the same day. Visit Emax Tactical online and use code TODD for 10% off your first order. Visit us at emaxtactical.com. EMACStactical.com.
Welcome back, my friends. I was thinking about this. I'm not going to have time to get to the other stuff I wanted to get to. This is always the case. I never get to everything I want to because there's a lot of stuff to talk about out there today. But you can always go to our website, toddhuffshow.com, go to the stack of stuff, see some of the things that I alluded to that I just didn't have time to get to. But what I thought I would do here this last segment. Now remember, Scott McFarland is supposed to be a journalist. And I thought what I would do is I don't have any notes here, by the way. I might do some claps and some snaps like Scott was doing in his report there. But I don't have notes. I'm not reading from whatever he's got going on here internally, which is fine. Do whatever you need to do here. I'm just going to tell you what a true journalist would do, talking about this executive order. So here's what I would say, and this is fair. President Trump issued an executive order. He issued an executive order, and I don't want to go through everything, my friends, because we've done that throughout both hours of this show. But he issued an executive order to secure our elections. President Trump and Republicans claim that there are concerns about illegal aliens voting in elections. Democrats and people on the other side of the political aisle insist that there are not. Democrats believe that this is dangerous and that it undermines people's confidence in elections. Republicans, however, think that the real problem here is that these allegations of fraud and these vulnerabilities within our system of elections has been and could potentially continue to be taken advantage of, causing the real problem here, which Republicans would argue is that you don't know if the election results are consistent with actually how people voted. Those are the arguments. Make up your mind on what you will. But to pretend like the only way to undermine, that's the end of my synopsis there. To pretend, now we're into my commentary. To pretend, Scott, that the only way to destabilize communities and to basically cause this feeling of uncertainty and to undermine the authenticity and the accuracy of elections is to question the way that we're running elections. Do you realize how dumb that is? Do you realize that that's like saying, by the way, it's what they do with Doge. This is how they operate. When Doge finds something, the government's spent money on this, Sesame Street in Baghdad or whatever. It costs this much. They defend it. They, the media, probably Scott. I can't speak specifically for Scott. Like I said, I've never seen this dude before. But people like Scott are out there saying, hey, this is, people are really starting to question the authenticity of our government. Well, you know what, Scott? That's a healthy thing to do. This nation was built upon the idea that we are a people that have handed to the government through the Constitution. We have said, you are given these authorities. You have the consent of the governed, Scott. This is a concept, an idea. The government doesn't come in and tell us how to live our lives. What we do as the free people with our liberties from God, we look at the government and say, we're going to establish a government to do these specific things. These things outlined in this Constitution. Here it is. Stay within these these guardrails. You can do these specific things. You have our consent to do these things. You have none of our consent to do anything that's not explicitly written in this document. And I'm going to watch you like a hawk, Scott. That's exactly how this government should be operating, Scott. That's exactly what the people should do. And by the way, I've never seen, it is amazing to me, when there are two opposing points of view, like take election integrity. Instead of trying to get answers to the people who are on one side of the issue, they try to silence them and they try to bully them and intimidate them into not sharing their thoughts and concerns. Scott, I deal with some insane people on social media, and I understand that some of them simply do not have an interest in the truth. But I also understand that there are people that don't understand some things and have questions, and they should be able to ask those. They should be able to question my authenticity, just like I'm questioning yours, Scott. They should be able to do that. That's what happens in a free country. And you know what, Scott? You know what we believe? We believe that here in a free country, that people, if we're allowed to express ourselves clearly and we can shine the light and not be confined to how the things we can say in response and the claims that the concerns that we have with our government, with this radio show, with your program, Scott. If we can't do those things, then we're never going to get to the truth. It's one of the things I loved about Trump. When Trump says it's fake news, you guys, I don't know you specifically, but you remind me of a lot of people that did this. People in the media said, you can't say that, undermining our Constitution. It's a constitutional crisis. What are we going to do? The end of the world as we know it. Can't be questioning these things. Why not? Why can't you come out and explain to the American people why you should be trusted? The president has to do it. It's insane to me that Scott wants to blame people who point out problems that they see in our federal government. He wants to blame those people for undermining confidence as though the people who are possibly doing these things aren't the ones to blame. Who sees the world this way? If you would simply address the things at hand, answer the question, fulfill people's desire to know things that they don't understand, if you were giving them true information, none of this would be to the point that it is today. You actually hold a lot of personal responsibility, CBS, for this, but I gotta go. SDG.
Listen to the Wealth Talks podcast and increase your financial wisdom. You will find episodes about investments, the infinite banking concept, how to fight inflation, the financial side of retirement, and financial questions Jesse asked his girlfriend. Listen to the Wealth Talks podcast on any podcast platform or watch it on YouTube. There are new episodes of the Wealth Talks podcast weekly. Search for Wealth Talks podcast online and subscribe for free.
Seeking natural solutions for your health and wellness? Look no further than Garden Root Remedy. We offer handcrafted herbal tinctures, salves, teas, and more made with only the highest quality organic herbs. We provide personalized consultations to help you find the perfect herbal remedy for your specific needs. Experience the power of nature's healing touch. Visit Garden Root Remedy online at gardenrootremedy.com. That's gardenrootremedy.com. Rooted in nature, blooming with wellness.